a week or so and just eat 2 meals a day for a week.
Yeah.
And sort of get your fix. But yeah, I mean, look, it's important to eat in other restaurants for the joy of eating, for the pleasure of hospitality.
Not just benchmark.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's a bit tedious.
For sure.
And I think if you're always looking out, you don't have your own independence. You don't have your own cuisine. Like it's really important at our level to not be always looking what other people are doing, but to almost bunker in and see what comes out of that.
Well, yours is such a unique, and as you said, it's your experience that no one else is going to get. So, if you're doing an Italian or if there's 2 million other restaurants doing a similar cuisine,
that's right.
I gather benchmarking's more needed because you've got to know, well, what's the other 10,000 doing? But you guys want to create such a unique environment that it could probably move you off course if it's not done right.
Yeah, look, I think it's really important to evolve your cooking, and I think sometimes you eat in certain restaurants that are really different to what you do. Cuisines that you know nothing about, those sorts of flavours you've never eaten before, and it sort of it wakes you up a bit, if anything. Like if anything, you're not there to copy what's going on food wise, but you're good to get a bit of a jolt to say, wake up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's important. But the thing that I most enjoy about going to restaurants is often the style of hospitality.
Yeah, okay.
That sort of stuff. I really much more into that, and in that sense, Japan's like the ultimate in that sense. Like you go to Japan once a year just to remind yourself of what hospitality should be like, because at every single level, from sushi in a shopping centre to the most ridiculous, expensive, high-end meal where there's only 6 seats in the restaurant, they deliver a sensation of like generosity, and like it's all inclusive, and you're the only person in the world for them at that moment. It's not like they're not thinking about what's coming up tomorrow. Like it's just there's just a connection often you have in Japan, which is really it's intense.
For sure.
I mean, it's very beautiful, and it's very reassuring to know that hospitality can still be like that. Because sometimes, in all honesty, you get worn down.
For sure, yeah.
You're reviewed every 10 minutes. People demand things from you that seem just ridiculous to you, but you do it, and certainly you can get a bit worn down from the over-giving that you do get involved in, yet often get people can't see it sometimes, and they don't appreciate it sometimes. They don't appreciate your team sometimes.
And that's you're talking about that being present. You're the only person for them, like in Australia, but in that sort of Western culture where we're busy. So it's what's next. Like, well, you've done this. Well, what's next? Or it's that past and future.
Look, I think that's what I secretly think that's what most people like about our restaurant more than the food or the service. It's just a place they can be in private for 3 to 5 hours where no one's bothering them.
Which is rare these days.
You know what I mean? Because and that's really what big part of what we wanted to create, and that's why we've put so much effort into the grounds and into the space and into being with nature and that chance to like disconnect
and reconnect.
Because people drive and it takes them some time to get there, and there might be bloody traffic in Melbourne, have a fight in the car, whatever, all the stuff that can happen just by being in a vehicle. And they cross the gate and they drive this driveway, and from that moment,
it's like a pause,
just like take it down a bit, and we don't hurry them. Their table's not for someone else; it's theirs. Exactly. It's not. We're not turning it over.
No.
And if they want to get up and go for a walk in the middle of the menu, we encourage that. Like it's encouraged. Go outside, chill out.
Sure.
And so that was a really huge part of I guess.
Okay,
what we wanted to do, really because it's something that we both enjoy as well, of having that real,
because it was
complete.
It was really
hospitality
laid back,
experience
but it was really
where
deep at the same
everything's
time.
okay.
Sat in my office, and two more questions before we go. But how important?
We just talked.
And I know
really
living in Berry with kids, and part of the reason why we moved out here,
what I
it's
see
how important that connection
leaders
to
and
nature
really
for you
good quality
and
leaders
your
and
family,
visionaries is they're just so clear.
Basically,
you know,
a restaurant on that, because you could have put a restaurant in the middle of Melbourne where
they come in and they've got a vision and they understand how hard it is to deliver the vision.
Yeah, it's super important. I mean, it's important creatively for me.
And that's
it's
what
important just as a person to be.
His story's amazing, but
all the
how
time.
he goes about it.
And it's not to say that I don't love cities,
because
because
but real humility
I love them.
at the same time. And that shines
I've still
through in that
lived
conversation.
in
So
for at least
I
half
hope
my
you liked
life.
it. Have a great Christmas, and
each time I go away, I always want to go to a city.
City,
you know, and the great thing about Bury is it's only an hour and a half to the city. Yeah. Like, it's just there, and Melbourne's a great city. So yeah, I mean, it's really key to my ability to bounce back at times. You know, to be focused on this thing so wholeheartedly, to not be, you know, waiting at a tram stop or in a public space all the time, to have privacy, to have space, all those things. I know it makes me probably a better person, and it makes me certainly more giving to what I do. And, you know, I think for us, like, working in this type of environment, which is so intense, which is so many hours a day, which is so connected to other things that really, do they benefit? You know, the media connection, all this stuff that goes on daily, is it of benefit to you as a person?
Yeah.
Probably not, you know. To be 2 minutes from work at home, to know that I can just be there all night.
For sure.
To be 40 minutes to Apollo Bay, for example, to be down at Skeens Creek straight away and just go, okay, that's nowhere near work now. It's a different landscape even. You know, like, to have all those opportunities, I think it's really important for me.
And, you know, for me being a dad as well, it's like the kids, you know, people talk about the kids should climb trees and play outside, like, but that in our environment, that literally happens every day. Like, and we're pretty lucky because it's the norm. Like, the kids are outside constantly, and that's the culture we've created within the community. Yeah,
I mean, I think you couldn't hope for more, really, because, again, I mean, even those that with Ivy, like, I know that, you know, she's growing up in a pretty strange environment because, you know, she does on one hand have all the Bury life, her friends, and she's close to school and she's outside, and, you know, she's growing up a country kid, her friends are farmers, and you know, that type of thing, and that's really great because it's context to her environment, and it's understanding of reality of life, and, you know, even eating meat at home, she's like, is this even the words that she used? Like, is this a cow? You know, it doesn't say it's a beef, it's a cow. It's a cow. It's come from a paddock. You know, like, and get the chickens, or go and pick berries at the farm, and know where the vegetables grow, and know each year that tree's going to have that fruit on it again. Like, have that real contact to environment. But also growing up in a world as an only child as well, in a world that's sort of full of adults and full of quite busy adults, and
for sure.
And hospitality is one of those things that every time she comes to work, like, she's the centre of attention, because all of our staff, that's their job day in, day out. It's who they are as people, very giving people.
Yeah. So
they give to her for the time she's there, and she's like, you know, loves it, and she understands that people come to the restaurant and it's very busy, and sees her dad in the newspaper, and sort of, you know, like, it's quite unusual. But I think, in a sense, by being here, it also keeps her grounded as well, because...
For sure.
You know, like, she goes to school.
Well, she's
like,
just another kid at school. Like,
that's exactly right.
You know,
and so she should be.
Yeah,
that's who she is, you know. And
no one's giving any special treatment to anyone.
That's right. And that's exactly how we'd like it. And that's how it is, you know. I mean, that's just life, you know. But I think it's just the context of life for her is really good. It's kept under wraps, in a sense, because it'd be quite easy to... As a young kid with a growing mind, to sort of,
for sure,
you know, get a bit out of hand in that sense, a bit of self-importance or whatever, and certainly she doesn't have that opportunity, you know, which is good, not at all. You know.
Mate, lastly, like, how do you then, like, you sort of mentioned that you're process-driven. How do you hold the tension, or even within the kitchen, between creativity and wanting to be creative and being process-driven? Like, what's that look like for you guys?
Kitchens are probably one of the least creative spaces in the world.
Okay.
And certainly working in a restaurant is not creative. The nuts and bolts of a restaurant, the service element of what we do. So guests make a booking, they come in, they sit down, we feed them, they go. To feed them, we've got to do lots of movements. There's a transaction in terms of a personal transaction. There's a business transaction, and then they're out of there. And it's just like, it's all done with haste. There's a lot of movements that we have to do to get those things to them in that time and to everyone to make it seem very smooth and very beautiful and all that type of stuff. And creativity requires time, requires freedom, requires trial and error, requires analysis. All of those things that's not necessarily in the realm of the day-to-day.
So you keep them separate?
So I have to keep them separate. And I probably don't manage them separately as well as I'd like to, and I think we also probably don't have the organisational structure within our business at the moment to really push the creativity side of things in the way that I'd really like to, you know what I mean? Like, very fast-growing business, 5 years old, sort of gone through the roof.
Yeah.
We're just sort of hanging on a bit in a sense,
for sure.
Guiding it, but still hanging on,
The horse is out of control. You've got the reins.
We're hanging on, but it's certainly it's got its own momentum, and it's about, I guess, managing that momentum. Creativity needs to be probably done separate to our kitchen on days where we're not open, with a staff that perhaps aren't involved in the day-to-day, a proper dedicated team that focuses on those things, that just churns out ideas. Because I've got piles of books.
I could imagine.
With untried words in them,
How do you do that? How do you manage that between, again, the day-to-day? It seems as if you would have ideas that you'd love to get going that potentially you haven't got the space or the time to do. So that, again,
that's the thing, and that's the challenge. I guess that's when we talked about reevaluating the 5-year mark, that's probably in the top of the list to how do we move forward. And I guess even going back further to our discussions, they're talking about what separates the top place from other places. And I think what's happened in the last sort of 15, 20 years in some of these restaurants that the whole world is sort of obsessing about, and one, they have ridiculous staff bases. They're talking, and I mean, we, I guess, do as well, but like, you're talking about 30, 40, 50 seat restaurants with staff of 100. You're talking about 40 cooks in these restaurants, and you're talking about R&D situations where there's people just working as a team on ideas, And I guess really for us or for Australian restaurants to maintain that level of creativity, where it's the creativity's being also put to use. It's not just creativity for creative's sake. It's actually getting churned into a result. Requires,
and that process itself is hard to, often creativity can get wasted because it's an idea, but then it can't come to fruition.
Oh, completely.
So to spend the time and the people to do it, you want to have the bang for your buck. Absolutely,
and that's also why there's many less creative restaurants in the world than there are just traditional restaurants, because it does require the ability to go. I guess it's about objectives. What do you put as your number one priority? And some restaurants put creativity as the number one priority. And at all costs. And many of those restaurants probably never made any money.
No, that's the financial.
They're one of the most famous restaurants of all time, El Bulli in Spain, Catalonia, that it was open for 25 years and had a staff of 100 and was full, would sell out its whole year reservation the day it opened, would be booked out 50 seats for 6 months the day it opened. There was a raffle in the end. It had so many people trying to book it, they just started doing a raffle. Never made a cent. People were like, what are you talking about, never made a cent? It's full. It's like, well, look what we do. We spend 6 months only on creativity and 6 months then delivering that creativity, and change the menu every year with new cutlery, with new plates, with new, the whole thing. And that's a creative space, and it's something that we obviously have no, we're nowhere near, but it requires that. It requires that commitment to at least some part of your creative mind to then see it in fruition,
Yeah, mate. We'll leave it there because I think it's a good spot to end it. We might pick up a conversation again later on.
Absolutely.
I think we sort of got into it. But, mate, thanks for your time. And,
thanks, mate.
If people get a chance and they can get a seat, get down to Brae and, experience it.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay, so I really hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed the conversation.